The most exciting thing about the MacBook 2025 is that it can do something that no other laptop in the world can do. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the other cool things that the MacBook will be able to do thanks to Apple's new R1 chip. First off, the battery life is going to be incredible. Not only will it last longer than any MacBook has ever lasted, but it will also charge faster than any MacBook ever. The M2 MacBook Air takes 90 minutes to fully charge from 0 to 100 with a 30-watt charger. That's not very fast at all. But the M3 MacBook Air is rumored to be able to charge 250% in just 30 minutes using a 30-watt charger. It's unclear if this is a 1-hour charge time or just the 50% mark, but either way, this is a huge improvement. And then once we get to the M4 and M5 chips, these could charge even faster, potentially up to an hour at 50%. This would be thanks to Type-C charging support with up to 100 watts of power delivery, which is double what the M2 can currently accept. Now, in terms of performance, the M2 chip was a pretty big improvement over the M1. Most benchmarks showed anywhere from a 10 to 20 performance increase. But the M3 chip is set to be a much more significant update. We're expecting at least a 30 performance increase over the M2. It's possibly up to 40. So this new MacBook should easily be the most powerful Mac ever made. It's also worth mentioning that, because Apple uses a 3-nanometer fabrication process for the M3, M4, and M5 chips, these chips are going to be extremely power efficient. They're going to use less power than the M2 chip while offering better performance, which is why we're going to see such an improvement in battery life. And better efficiency is also why Apple will be able to push the performance of these chips so far. But now let's talk about that special thing that only the 2025 MacBook will be able to do, which is run Mac OS without needing a fan. And here's why that is possible. You see, Macs have always used fans for one reason, and one reason only: to keep the older Intel chips cool. Fans have been around since the original Mac in 1984, with the very first fan used in the PowerBook 170 in 1989, and every single Mac since then has had some sort of fan except for the MacBook Air, which uses a different logic board design that doesn't require a fan. But all of these Macs have used Intel chips, which generate a lot of heat, so they need a fan to stay cool. But when Apple switched to their own M1 chip, they were finally able to make a super thin and light MacBook Air without a fan because the M1 was much more efficient. And since the new R1 chip will be even more efficient, it'll be able to offer similar performance to the M1 Max chip, which is 2 times faster than the M1, but it'll do it with less heat. In fact, the R1 chip will be able to perform better than the M1 Max in certain workloads like video editing, motion graphics, and even some games, because those apps are optimized to take advantage of the extra GPU cores that the R1 offers. So performance-wise, the 2025 MacBook will be able to do anything that the most expensive 16-inch MacBook Pro can do, but it'll do it without a fan. That means it'll also be completely silent. There's simply no need for a fan to keep the R1 chip cool. It won't produce enough heat. This also means that we could see a new entry-level MacBook Air that replaces the 13-inch MacBook Pro. And this new Air would be significantly thinner than the current model because it wouldn't need any space for a fan. It could look more like the 13-inch MacBook Pro, basically the same thickness as the iPad Air. Of course, don't forget that this is just a rumor, and it's based on the assumption that Apple will continue to use a 3-nanometer fabrication process for the M3, M4, and M5 chips. If they switch to a different manufacturer that uses a larger 5 nanometers process, then we might not see these huge improvements in performance and battery life. But I think it's more likely that Apple is going to continue making their chips smaller, since they've already mastered the 3-nanometer process, and they're already getting ready to move on to 2 nanometers for the iPhone 16 next year. This is your host. Thanks for watching till the end, and I'll see you in the next video.